Margaret Hirsch, and welcome to On the Move with Margaret. It's a podcast where I interview women who inspire me, and hopefully by doing that, will inspire you to be the best that you can possibly be. So today I'm coming to you from Pompano Beach, where I live here, and I've just come back from Hawaii. It's 10 o'clock last night, which was a magnificent week away and with friends, and it was just a beautiful cruise, and Hawaii is spectacular, I do have to say. But I'm talking to Yael, who's in Belito. Isn't this marvelous that wherever you are in the world, we can just chat to each other? So, Yael, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm so happy that you come in and your busy schedule and you've come in to talk to us.
Thrilled to be here. And the fact that I inspire you is a huge compliment because it really is the other way around. But yes, so we're both by the sea, but I'm heading off tomorrow and you're not. So I'm very jealous.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's amazing. But you're heading back to work now. Yeah, let's just go back. I mean, your gran was Edith Geffen Estate Agency, Edith Estates, and then your dad was Lou Geffen Estates, and now you are CEO of Sotheby. So property, was it always in your blood? Or let's take it back to the little girl growing up, because I know you wanted to be an actress.
Yeah, I tried as much to run away from it as possible. And so funnily enough, so did my father. But we didn't succeed. But yeah, I think I was brought up on a real estate diet. Every table discussion was real estate property. I make a joke that when my little sister was born, I mean, she's not so little anymore, she's in her 30s, but my father used to rock her going, how many deals have you done today? How many deals have you done? It's definitely in my blood, but it was wonderful to go overseas and have a different experience different cultures, different industries. Yes, but there is some part of me that is hankering to have been on Saturday Night Live as one of the comedic actors, but I have to let that dream go for now.
Oh, yeah, only for now. It's never too late. As you know, with me, it's never too late to do what you decided you want to do. But anyway, but now you've got your hands full at the moment, being CEO of Sotheby's and being in property. And I don't know if all you ladies know that 67% of all the residential properties in South Africa are owned by women. But there's not one woman on the board. So our mutual friend Anita Momberg has started a new thing, Femme Properties, and we're now getting women onto the board and getting a voice for the women who own properties in South Africa and hopefully across the world. So just tell us a bit, for those who don't know your story, just tell us a bit about you growing up, where you went to work in the States and then coming back and how you landed up as being CEO.
Yeah, so, I think when I reached my late teens, I had a bit of an identity crisis in the sense that I was always referred to Lou Geffen's daughter or Ada Geffen's granddaughter. And I just wanted to find myself, and what better city to be anonymous than New York City. And I found myself, going there, and I landed up staying there for 4 years and then tried any job possible to stay there. I mean, I lived like a vagabond for the first 2 years, literally couch surfing, lived in Brooklyn, I worked in Queens packing shoe boxes. Then I was a receptionist, and then slowly, obviously the overachiever and competitive person in me, showed up. And then I worked at an animation studio called Noodle Soup Productions, which was honestly the most fun job I've ever had in my life, being around that amount of creativity. And I headed up the marketing and business development, and it's in my blood. I think I'm a natural born marketer. It's based on relationships, not push. I always believe in pull. And then within a few months, I headed up the business sales division, and then I was headhunted to work at a production company called EUE Screen Gems, and I represented two commercial directors. So Madison Avenue was my home. Every ad agency,
Wow.
I was always whining and dining the creators of every ad agency. It was just such a fun time. And then I actually got retrenched, and it was a gift in the sense that you get your unemployment check. So I could barely dance full time, which was one of my passions. 2 years, I think I'd die if I had to, just do one song. And then my my boyfriend that I was seeing at the time got a job in LA at Cartoon Network, and I'd been retrenched, and I thought, meh, okay, let me go with him. I'm not an LA girl. Santa Barbara maybe, but I didn't feel it had any soul. But I landed up working at an advertising agency, being a strategic planner, again working with creative people, strategy. And then I was let go again because of the big recession. The economy hit. It was that Goldman Sachs
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Everyone was
Yeah.
getting let go. I was let go with 14 people that day, and I was one of two that got 2 weeks' notice, which is like a
Sure.
privilege. Everyone else was
Yeah.
escorted out. And then
Yeah.
I decided my best friend's father passed away. My boyfriend at that time and I broke up. And, it comes in threes. And I thought, let me go visit Joburg. I'll eventually come back to New York. It's my home. I still see it as my home. And I just thought, while I'm here, let me put my foot in the family business just for a
Yeah.
little while. And here I am 6 years later. But, it is sad. I'll tell you this, that back in the day, I know the Femme Property Alliance has been formed and it's wonderful. And I'm seeing more women in leadership. But back in the day, my late Gran and the late Pam Golding were spearheaded and trailblazed. And they, were powerful figures in property. And somehow it just shifted to well managed, owned property companies. And I think my desire is to get it back there because women in
Yeah.
leadership do offer something different. They offer empathy, compassion. I think, we don't have an ego as much as men and fewer court cases for sure. But
And we get things done. That's what women, when you work with women,
we
we
do.
get them done.
And I'm just hoping that there is more of a shift towards that because it does tend to be the boys' club. And, the legacy that Pam and Aida, even Adrian Hirsch and Linda Erasmus with Fine and Country, there were a lot of powerful women in real estate, and that's shifted. And I'd love to see it get back there.
Absolutely. And it's up to us to make sure it gets back. But with more women getting into it now, and that's why I've done my real estate degree and I'm busy with my broker's degree, which is very hectic. I think you'd have to have a CA plus to be able to get it. But anyway, I'm working on it at the moment. So let's just talk about women in business, because people always say to me, oh my gosh, you a woman in business, and is it difficult with all the men? And I always say to them, I never found it that way, but because I was brought up by a single mother, and so I had no patriarchal thing. I didn't think I had to ask a man for any permission to do anything, and I never have. So for me, being a woman in business was very easy. I was the only woman in the room. I would still make the tea. I would still do what I had to do, and I'd still talk, and I'd talk up. And I think that's where a lot of women go wrong. We're all taught to be sweet and nice and kind, and we want everyone to like us, so we tend to take a back seat. Where today, women can't do that. They've got to get out, but you can't go blabbing your mouth off if you can't do the job. So first of all, you've got to be really good at your job, and secondly, you've got to be able to speak up. So I always believe that you teach people how to treat you, and as a woman in business, I taught people how to treat me, and no man has ever, tried to override me in that sort of a way. But you've had quite a time with being the only woman in the business, and especially being CEO when you've got all these men working underneath you. How have you handled that one?
So I had a different experience growing up. It was very patriarchal, and women took a back seat. And when I got the position, I actually, leant into toxic masculinity in the sense that I thought I needed to be more masculine and in order to assert more power. And I was wearing ties like such a schmuck. I don't even know why I started wearing ties and bow ties. I thought I had to be something different. And then eventually, after looking at myself in the mirror after like the 10th time, I was like, this is such rubbish. Like, I look like such a schmuck. What am I doing? I'm a woman. I bring a lot to the table. I'm not a man. There's a lot of power in being a woman. And I think you get, like you say, you get women that are insecure in that space and are scared to ask for a seat at the table. And then you get women that try and emulate men in order to feel like they'll succeed, and they lean into this masculinity. But that isn't feminine power at the end of the day. And when I stepped into feminine power and and wasn't worried about how people perceived me. I was worried about, how, my take and my knowledge and my expertise and getting mentors and networking. I turned from the filters and the fake to foundations. And that was a massive shift for me, because I thought, I don't need to prove myself. I deserve to be here, and you'll see why, and
Yeah.
the proof will
Yeah.
be in the
Absolutely.
pudding. So, I went from fighting for a seat at the table to sitting at the head of the table, and from wearing ties to wearing pink sequins, and from jumping into a room to gliding. And
Mm.
that's where I'm at today. And I think that's where a lot of women go wrong. And I do think, being brought up by single mothers, you are taught that you're very powerful as a woman.
Yeah.
But if you are
Yeah.
brought up in kind of like a patriarchal home,
Yeah.
where women
Yeah.
take the back seat, it's quite hard to make that shift.
Yeah. Yeah, and you need to make that shift. All the women out there watching, you really need to make that shift and decide, I'm strong. I believe I'm stronger than any man, and I know that I can go out. But for me, especially here in the States, a lot of women use sex to sell their product. So what do you say to women when they go out and they feel that they've got to act extra sexy? And to me, it's the worst thing ever, but I just wanted to get your take on it.
It's such a great question, because I was saying to someone the other day, the hardest place to be. So you're either like built like a man and, masculine, and that's the way you come across, or you are like a bombshell, Sophia Vergara, is that her name? And
Yeah, yeah, Barbie doll.
use your womanly wiles, and men just can't speak because they're just so enamored by you, and everything's a yes, yes, yes. I think the hardest place to be is actually attractive and sexy and powerful, which sits somewhere
Yeah,
in the middle. And I mean, I know I'm not a Sofia Vergara, but I think I'm quite attractive, and that, I think, actually makes men kind of unsteady, because they don't know how to treat you, because you are feminine, but you are
yeah,
powerful, and they don't know how to
yeah,
treat the middle section. So it's
yes,
quite difficult if you're in the middle section, but using your feminine wiles can only get you so far. And
yeah,
yeah, you might jump the ladder quicker, and and just get a lot of men saying yes, but you want to be respected at the end of the day. And I think those women using their sexuality don't earn respect,
yeah,
and you don't want to be feared like the masculine
yeah,
women, but I think there's some
yeah.
kind of beauty sitting somewhere in the middle. I mean, you wear your
Somewhere in the
makeup,
middle.
you've got your fabulous outfits, your dresses, you don't dress like a man. I know your makeup is your war paint. You've told me before, but there's nothing wrong with being feminine and powerful at the same time, and stepping
Yeah,
into that
yeah.
authentic leadership.
And I think us as women, we have to step into that leadership, into that powerful role where you go in with confidence and know that you can do anything. And it takes a lot of practice to do that. It doesn't come overnight. So when you think about it, with working with men and that, what mistake did you make that you think we could tell the women out there, that I used to step back and let the men speak first. Now I don't, I speak first. What we're doing is we've got women out there watching us saying, I would like to be strong and powerful like these women, but I'm not there yet. What's the step that have to take to get there?
So I think we carry baggage ancestrally, and women carry a lot
Yeah.
of shame, more than men,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
the scarcity mindset of, in the olden days, if you look at Bridgerton or Queen Charlotte or any of those series, you'll see that the prettiest woman was chosen, and women had to compete with each other, and it was very rare that women could lift each other up. And I think we're in the phase of life where it's so important that women support other women. So the mistakes I made again was leaning into toxic masculinity, thinking I needed to do that in order to be more powerful. And then also, I think I struggled for a bit to assert myself, because
Yes.
there's research done on this, that if you ask a man a question, they'll put up their hand if they're 30% sure of the answer. And
Yeah.
they'll only put up their hand if they're 70% of the
Yeah.
know the answer. And that's such a difference in our thinking. So I think getting over this shame. You know, we have all these power blocks. And I think especially now, we're not in villages anymore. We used to have so many resources and help, especially if you're a mother and in the working world. And it's about
Yeah.
being brave and saying help and resourcing yourself. And that's the isolation part of it. You know, we feel we have to do everything
Yes.
on our own. And then the scarcity part of it of if she succeeds, I won't. And I think,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
one thing that I love about our relationship and the relationships that I've built with women in very powerful positions is the support and the collaboration.
Mm.
And
Yes.
you know, we don't compete anymore. We actually support each other. It's a huge shift.
Absolutely. And I think if women support each other, we can and I always say to them, you can only grow by lifting others up, because as you lift them up, they push you up as well. It's so, so true. So, leadership, being a woman leader does take a lot of courage. You've got to, you go out there and you have to make decisions that impact people's lives, and you have to have that courage. How do you draw on that inner courage in yourself?
So I think there's a space where you don't have to be aggressive, but you can be firm. And initially, I was worried that if I was firm, I wasn't likable. And I was more worried
Yeah.
about being likable. But the reality is, you're heading a business and you have to make decisions and you have to make them quickly. So there was a huge pushback to me in the sense that we'd just gone through a recession. Our previous CEO had murdered his wife at our conference. So we were in a PR disaster. I was a chairman's daughter, so Nepo baby, here we come. And all the odds were kind of stacked against me. And I did spend the first 6 months observing because, you know, this idea of new broom sweeps clean, you rub people the wrong way. You've got to observe before you know. But it got to a point, and I was on the opposite end of people saying to me, I don't think you're the right fit for the role. I think you offer no strategy. And it was pretty hectic. And instead of going home and crying, I was like, you know what? I said to them, just give me a chance to prove myself. That's it. Just give me a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting because last year when I reached out to you, when I was getting a lot of press and a lot of exposure, I felt a lot of bullying. And you said to me, you said something very powerful. You said, this means you're making it and revel in it because this means you're
Yeah.
actually being noticed. And I think, you know,
Yeah.
when women get bullied, we tend to kind of shy away instead of embracing it and going, I'm making an impact and there will be
Yes.
naysayers. And then, you know,
Yeah.
but I do remember one person, you know, one of our franchisees, he was raising his voice at me on the phone, and I'm very calm, but you can only poke a bear so much until it bites. And he was starting to raise his voice at such a level. And I just then raised my voice and I said, if you want to have a fight and if you want to have a screaming match, let's go. But you can do this in a calm, structured way and stop losing your cool. He got such a fright, he put the phone down. And it was so funny because he phoned back and he said, oh, sorry, I lost reception. And I said, no, you didn't. And I made a joke of it. And I said, well, that was our first domestic. So let's move on. And ever since I asserted myself with that, you know, person, that male, the whole nature of our relationship changed because, like you say, people only treat you how you allow them to treat you. And if you allow
Absolutely.
them to treat you like a doormat, you can't blame them for treating you like a doormat. So you
Mhm.
have to show people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a certain amount of confidence and courage in order to do that. And it's not comfortable at first for a lot of women. But once you get into the hang of it, it comes naturally. And hopefully, you don't want to be in those positions where you have to assert yourself and you don't feel like you're being authentic. And I think that's kind of where I find the sweet spot is being an authentic leader, being able to be myself, but firm when I need to be, soft when I need to be, and just be
Yes.
me, you know?
Yeah, I think that's what we just have to be the best person that we can possibly be, that we know we're strong, that we know we can cope with it. We have to have courage to go in and face things head on because you've got to get it done. At the end of the day, you're running a business, so you can't sort of start, should I do this? Should I do that? You've always got to do what's best for the business first.
Mm.
Now, Tell us about you got quite involved with mental health now, because and mental health is a big thing. It's something we never thought about, we never spoke about for so long, and suddenly it's come out and people can speak about it and they're feeling okay speaking about it, because you don't always feel good all the time. You know, you have days where you have, oh gosh, I'm having a wobbly today. How do you cope with that? I mean, people phone you and ask you to talk on mental health. You can get up and you can go, because it's very close to your heart.
Yeah, so again, you inspired me to share my journey, and I was very worried that the world would turn its back on me, but instead it embraced me with open arms. And I just thought, how can you make change if you can't be honest about your own journeys? And people are so scared to share because there's still a stigma around it, much less than there used to be. But I lost my brother to suicide. I lost a lot of loved ones, and I had a journey with mental health, and I just believe you should get the support you need. And it's not a shame. It's not something to be um, embarrassed about, because the reality is if you have diabetes, what do you take? Insulin, right? Going through cancer, a lot of people, have chemo. But if you are experiencing some kind of mental health challenge, it's still frowned upon to take meds, and it should just be seen as any other health condition. And sometimes, it's situational. If you're suffering from post-traumatic stress and you won't need medicine for life, sometimes it's chemical, sometimes it's in trauma induced, and it's such a realm. It's such a kind of, it's still, it's spoken about now much more than it ever was, but it's still so unexplored. And I just look forward to a day. I've got a lot of leaders that have approached me after talks that I do about it. And loneliness is the new epidemic. I mean, we have never been more lonely
Oh,
in
yes.
history. Digital media has totally stuffed us up. And we are so isolated, and we think connection is this, and it's not. We're not connecting
Yeah.
anymore. And because people are so lonely, they don't reach out, and it's all a facade. And comparison is the thief of joy. And you think, oh, everyone's doing well, I'm doing fine. And the suicide rate in South Africa is one of the highest in the world. Last week, I heard about a 16-year-old that committed suicide. So we're in a crisis. We're in an absolute crisis. But what I'd like to go back to is after I do a lot of these talks, a lot of people come up to me and they cry, and a lot of leaders that haven't felt comfortable to actually share. And I said,
Yes.
the only
Yeah.
way we can change this is if you share your story. If you don't,
Yeah.
it
You
cripples
got to.
everyone, so that's one of my passions, as is gender-based violence, and that's where the property angle comes in, because the more title deeds women own, the less violence they experience, the less abuse they experience.
Yeah.
So that's a real focus, is getting these women that are in gender-based violence relationships out into their own properties, into their own safety, and
Yes.
just creating and building the courage and the confidence to do it on their own, because they're so psychologically scarred, and they've been so controlled that they don't know how to do things. They don't realize that.
And I always say, if you've got your own home, not only is your roof over your head that nobody can come into, but the other thing is that you've got the capital growth, and if you need to, you can always rent it out, and it'll keep up with inflation. Because as a single woman and as a woman on your own, you've got to think of your retirement, and that's why I went into property, because I thought, what can I do that when I retire, I will have enough money to keep me in the condition to which I'm used to. I don't want to have to go backwards and go into a granny flat or something like that. So to me, property is a fantastic way to make sure you keep up with inflation, make sure that your money is safe because nobody can take it away. And, so I'm a great believer in that. And my wish is to get every single woman financially independent so that she can own her own property. She's got her own home. Her children can come back to her, be with her, and she can look after them. And she must have enough money to make sure that she can live into her old age and live in style instead of in poverty. So I think you and I are both on the same page there, and I know our friend Anita is as well.
We have the number one femicide rate in the world, and we have the most gender-based violence in the world. And we can talk about it, but it got to a point where I was like, I just can't talk about it anymore. I need to do something. I need to be the change. And until we get women in their own properties where they feel safe, that could be a person that could be killed tomorrow. The problem
Oh,
is there's such
absolutely.
a systemic problem that banks see these women as risks, even though they've got the money. They don't take a chance on them. They don't get the right legal
Yeah,
advice. They need, and that's why I'm doing a campaign to kind of change the narrative that if you get banks and legal and psychological safety, security, you can build these women to own their own properties, their own title deeds, and make them safe and confident. But if you've got a
absolutely.
structure and a society that sees these women as a risk, I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You just encouraging.
Making it worse than it
Right.
was. Yeah. So, so to the woman in the street who now is in a rented place, and a lot of people rent their whole lives. In fact, here in Florida, 80% of all the apartments are rented, it was crazy. Why would you do that when you can afford to buy it? I think they don't realize that, yes, there is that initial amount you've got to save up, but once you save that, you don't have to pay with your rent. Obviously, you're paying somebody else's bond off, you're paying their levy off. So if you get it yourself, at least you're doing something for yourself, and you can put your money into it. If you have a little extra money, you put that little extra in, you pay your bond off sooner, and you can always sell it and get a better place. And I think that's what I encourage women to do. And that's one of the reasons I went into property, because I think it's so important that we do that. But to the woman sitting out there now who's in a rented place, just almost living from hand to mouth, how does she start?
Well, I love Nikki Bush's expression. You know Nikki, and she's a coach and a very empowering woman, and does a lot of training also around mental health and resilience and disruption. But she has a line where she says, "Ladies, don't buy the handbag, buy the shares." And it's just a
Yes,
shift in a
absolutely.
mindset of just saving that little bit extra and knowing where to put it. But I think the fundamental problem, the systemic problem, is a lack of education. And that's where people like us can come
Yeah,
along, what you do with your entrepreneurship
yeah.
classes for free. Um, Perhaps, us educating women how to invest in property, what to look for, what you need. If people are empowered and they are educated, they can make the right decisions. A lot of these women don't even realize that they could be paying off a bond instead of paying rent because they don't have the knowledge. And if we empower with these
Uh-huh.
women with knowledge, it'll be a game changer.
Yeah, I know. But they always say, "Oh, I'm not ready yet. I haven't got enough to deposit. I haven't got this, haven't got that." And I always say to them, "Just start." I started my whole property business saving 100 Rand a month, and that's how I started. You just have to start and get them and get ready and find somebody who can help you with property, who knows property, who's been into it. And that's where your company comes in, because I mean, you have really a lot of agents all over the country who really know the areas. They know what properties are, where to buy, where not to buy, all that type of thing. I think it's really, really important. So, what would you say to a person who, when they want to invest in property? I always say buy somewhere, even if you don't want to live in it, just somewhere where you can get someone to help you pay off that bond and pay it off as quick as you can, and then keep on building up. Because I built from a tiny little house, 2,000 Rand house, to a 10,000 Rand house, and then I built my properties up from there. But you've got to start somewhere, even if it's in an area you don't really want to be. But you've got to buy what you can afford for now, and then build from there.
Exactly. And you just hit the nail on the head. You have to buy what you can afford. A lot of people overextend themselves and then it just bombs out, and then the banks end up taking it
Mm.
over. But know what you can afford, know the hidden costs, the transfer costs, and that's the
Yes.
education,
Yes.
the maintenance. They say a house is the biggest thing. What you can get in terms of bond repayments. And that's what I did when I came out of a divorce and I was a single mom.
Yes.
I bought a property for myself and my child that I knew was an interim property, but a good investment property. and it was a for now property. And I chose a place that ticked all the boxes, that was around, you want to choose a place that will always be full, that will always create desire, that will always have
Yes.
tenants wanting to live there. I think the most my house has ever been empty, my property was 3 months in since 2017, which
Yeah.
is phenomenal. Yeah,
Oh,
that was during
wow.
COVID. And you got to buy in an area that is sought after, near schools, near places of worship,
Yes.
near shopping centers, accessible. It depends
Yeah.
if you need staff quarters, pet friendly, whatever it is that makes it more attractive to other people, to other tenants. And you've got to put yourself in the shoes of, well,
Yeah.
if I'm a tenant and I'm looking to buy, what is accessible around me? It's no point being on the best, side of the street unless you want to live there, the best,
Yeah.
suburb, but it's not
Yeah.
close to any kind of amenities or schools or places of worship or shopping centers or business nodes, because then you must just live there and enjoy it. But if you're going to rent it out, it's
Yeah.
not sought after.
Yeah. And there's got to be like on a bus route or some public transport route as well. I think that's also very, very
Exactly.
important. So, now, just tell us, being a single mother, you've brought up the most amazing child, and I honestly do believe your child is one of the most amazing children I've ever met, who's now junior mayor of Johannesburg. So that's such a feather in your cap that you've managed to bring this child into the world, and he's just been such a brilliant, brilliant child. To all the women out there who's saying, "Oh my gosh, I've got this, I'm trying to do this, but I've got this child as well." You managing to juggle both lots by yourself. How do you do that?
Look, it's tough. And I always say something has got to give. I don't believe in this myth that of the superpower that women have balance. I think something's always got to give. So if
Yeah.
you are, I like to be fully present when I'm with him and when I'm supporting him.
Yeah.
And then when I'm at work, you teach him the respect to, let me work, because it's no
Yeah.
point being half in, half out, whether you at work or, he always comes first. I'm very lucky that my ex-husband is a great co-parent, and I arrange all my travel
Yeah.
and my big work meetings on the weeks that my son is with him. So I use that schedule. A lot of single moms don't have that opportunity or luxury, and it's very difficult. But I think the number one thing is to resource yourself, because we just can't do it all. We just can't. And if
Yeah.
someone says they can, they're lying. Really think they're lying, because it's hard,
Yeah.
and you want to be emotionally available to your child and nurture them. And yes, my son is now the mayor of Johannesburg, the mini mayor, and he's got his little robe, and I'm like, I cannot leave, I have a mayor in my house. It's just so ridiculous. But I'm so proud of him. And just teach kids that, you want to create kids that are valued in the world and make an impact, and if you ignore them and treat them like a hassle and getting in your way, they're not going to get that emotional component in order to succeed. But at the same time, they need to respect that good moms work, you know this idea. And good
Yes.
moms work,
I,
and moms are capable of creating enough money to take you on holiday, or creating enough money for you to feel safe in a house, and be able to treat you with certain things. And this whole idea of, if I'm a working mom, I'm neglecting. You create respect for them, and children value those mothers that respect themselves. And when he sees me torn apart and
mhm.
burnt out, and I'm no good to him or myself at that point. So we have to look after ourselves.
Yeah.
And, Edith Eger says a lot of people see this as shame. She just passed away, and she was just,
I was just going to ask you about her because she was just so amazing, such a wonderful woman. And the fact that you got to meet her is just so
yeah, it was
incredible.
just,
And she gave so much back to the world. I mean, she is one of the leading people in the world who gave so much back. So tell us a bit about your meeting with
she
her.
just leaves such a legacy, and often we just feel so sorry for ourselves, and we wallow in self-pity. And it's okay to feel. You have to, as her
Yeah.
expression is, in order to heal, you have to feel. You can't just skip over the feelings. But one of her quotes that I absolutely love is she says, suffering is universal, victimhood is optional. And you can complain and complain and complain, but eventually you got to crawl yourself out of the pit. And if someone from Auschwitz that saw her mother die literally in front of her, that saw the smoke coming out of the chimney, and had to dance for Joseph Mengele, the angel of death, and watch people die around her, come out of that and be able to transcend that into meaning. I was I don't know how, to be honest, Margaret, I'm still blown away by my meeting with her. So we often get scared to put up our hands and just try the impossible. And it was during COVID. And I thought to myself, I want to empower my network with resilience. It was such a hectic time where people felt so insecure and vulnerable. And who is the most resilient person on earth? And I just read The Choice, which I recommend everyone to read. It's one of her best-selling books, and it was just it is just the most powerful book. And I thought to myself, there is no one that I know more resilient than Edith Eger. And I mean, of course, I didn't have her contact details or anything. And this woman was interviewed by Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres and Michelle Obama. And I just thought, if I can reach out,
Why not
I
me?
just
Why
want
not
this is
me? And I think that's the crux of what I want to get to women, is that you can do anything if you put your mind to it, but you've got to do it. You can't just sit and wish and hope. You've got to actually get out and do it. So you did that and you
well,
got
that's
that.
it. If you don't
This
ask,
is
no one can
amazing.
say yes. So I literally went to her website and I wrote the story of my life and the challenges I've been through, and where I'd love to um, help our network during this time. And I thought, I'm never going to get a response. I mean, this is Edith Eger. And then the next week, I actually got a message in my inbox saying katie@editeger.com. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be a standard message. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're not able to do this. And the thing is, I get this message saying, hi there, Yael, thank you for reaching out to Edith. Edith would love to have this interview with you. Margaret, I nearly crashed my car. I actually was so to read it 10 times. And I burst out crying because this was like meeting my lifetime hero. I don't know how long she was going to be around for. At that point, I think she was 94. And if I tell you, she was so switched on. She had her camera in San Diego. I had my Zoom camera in, I think I did it at a studio in Woodmead. And it was just such an experience. And I was nervous to interview her, but I knew my material. And that's the thing. It was also another lesson that, if you're going to do something big, know your material. I read her book backwards. I looked at all the interviews that I'd seen that she'd done before, and I wanted to do different angles, not the same. And I landed up
Yeah.
chatting with her for
Yeah.
45 minutes. And one of the things that
Wow.
she said, often we see self-preservation as being selfish or self-absorbed. But
Mhm.
self-care, it's actually self-care. We're not being selfish. And women feel that if we're doing something for ourselves, if we're taking this hour away from our kids or our work or whatever it is, it's actually selfish. And it's not, it's self-love.
Absolutely. It really is. And it's so important to love yourself. As you say, you can't pour from an empty cup, so you have to fill your own cup. I always remember Oprah said, they said, oh, you're so full of yourself. She said, I'm actually so full, I'm overflowing, but that's how I'm supposed to be. So yeah, we've got to do that. And we've got to learn as women to do that, to actually know that we can be full of ourselves, that our cup is overflowing, and we've just got so much to give. If you weren't full of yourself, you'd have nothing to give. And I think that's the most important part that I want to get to the women out there. So just to sum up briefly, as just to, first of all, well done to you to be CEO of Sotheby's, and to have weathered the storm and got yourself there and stuck it out, and still going from strength to strength. I think it's just amazing. Secondly, to be a mother to Eli, and he is just such a wonderful child. He's just so grown up and amazing. He really is a wonderful boy. To be an inspiration to other women as well, I think is just so, so important. And you are an inspiration to other women. You do talks, and you tell women exactly what it's like. It is tough out there. It is hard. You do have your moments, but you just got to take control of yourself and your emotions. I think that's the biggest thing. I think when you can control your emotions, you can control everything, because once you let your emotions go, everything just goes. So I think to be able to control your emotions and to just carry on working hard, because I mean you work hard, as you say, you've been out, you do these amazing presentations to your staff, and they all do well, and you have a conference, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy to do all that, but you manage to get it all done, which I think is just amazing. So I think you're an amazing person, and it's just incredible what you've gone through and come out the other side. So to the woman out there who's going to say, well, it's all very well for them to sit there, but what about me? I'm just stuck here. I'm stuck at home. I haven't got this. I haven't got that. What are you going to say to them to get them out of their starting blocks and up and running?
I think there's great power in vulnerability, and there's great power in sharing and being authentic, and resource yourself. In the Tao of Pooh, there's Piglet and there's Winnie the Pooh, and Piglet says, I don't know if it's the other way around, but one of them says to each other, what is the bravest word you've ever said? And the other one says, help. We don't know how to ask for help. We think we have to do everything ourselves. That would be my message to them. And the point of you being here really is to make an impact. At the end of the day, you're not going to look at how much money you've made or, awards you've won and all of that, but you want to leave an impact, a legacy. You want to create a space where people remember how you made them feel. And that's really what we're here to do. And I think, what did they say? What is the opposite of love? It's not hate, it's fear. And fear guides so much of what we do as women. And, I have that saying, put up your hand for everything until you can afford to say no, but then say no, because I had to struggle. And then that's how I went out.
Yeah.
But it's really building
Yes.
blocks and dot to dot and celebrating your wins. We often just see the next thing and compare, but we've forgotten where we've come from. So I've got a highlight reel of my journey that I share when I do professional talks. And every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did all that. And I say to people, create a highlight reel. If you can't do it in a video,
Yes.
write the things that you've done. And then when you are going through that tough time, look back and say, oh my gosh, I got through that. Like, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel emotions. You know, like Edith said, in order to heal, you have to feel. The more you try and push them away, the more they're going to surface or, displace itself in something else. But yeah, I just think go out, give it, give it your all. Show up even if you don't feel
Yeah.
like it, because you'll land up helping someone, and just inspire others. And Margaret, you are the perfect example of this, because not only do you teach other women and men how to show up, but you're very authentic. You're you, and you're not going to change for anyone else. And you've taught me that if people criticize me or, the naysayers, who cares? Just carry on doing the work.
Yeah.
That means you're doing a good job. And the more you
Yeah.
attract, the more negative criticism you will attract. And just be around people that
Absolutely.
are your tribe. You're allowed to fire people in your life, and they may even be family.
Yes. Very
You're
much so.
allowed to find your tribe, find the women around you, the people around you that are your biggest support.
And I think we all need that support. And I always say to people, what somebody else says about you has got nothing to do with you. It's none of it's their business, not your business. Leave it with them. And you know the whole story with Buddha. And if somebody gives you a gift and you accept it, it's yours. And if you don't accept it, it's not yours. And it's the same with an insult. Because as women, we do get insulted, and people do say things that we don't like. And before we would go like a snail into its shell. Now I just come out and say, let's just move on, you know. So I think that also takes a lot of practice, like anything else. The more you practice, the luckier you get. So you've got to practice those things. I mean, people do say things that are nasty. I had to laugh because I did a whole thing when I was all my clothes that I wear, because I love fashion and I love clothes. And somebody says, oh, that's far too bright. And I wanted to say, might be too bright for you, but for me, why blend in when you were born to stand out? And I think that should be your mantra. But I want every woman watching this to go and write on her mirror with her lipstick, I am enough, and know that you are enough. Because even somebody like Michelle Obama, when in her book Becoming, she said whatever she did, she kept on thinking she wasn't enough, and she actually realized one day, I actually am enough. And if you can just know today that you are enough, so please go write it. All the ladies watching, go write it on your mirror. Yeah, and that must be your mantra going forward. But Yael, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I've so enjoyed this chat, and I always love chatting to you. You know, we can chat forever. And I think what stands out to me is how you forged your own path. You haven't followed anybody else, you know. And I think with myself as well, I'm a trailblazer, I'm a leader. And I think that's really strong. And as that woman is inside every single one of you that's watching this, every single one of you has that power to be a trailblazer, to be yourself and to go out and make it completely on your own. And I think that, to me, the greatest joy is to make it on my own. Yes, I have had a husband for 54 years. Yael, you've been such an inspiration to so many other women, especially in your industry, in the property industry, which I absolutely love. And for me, the biggest takeaway from today is that property isn't just an investment. It's a tool. It's something that you can create. It gives you independence. It can open doors, and it gives women real options for their future. And I think women, you've got to think about your future. Nobody else is going to think. You know, I always say, in the old days, you would get to 60, you'd retire, and you'd go and live with your children. Well, I tell you something, my children do not want me living with them, and I don't want to live with them either. So that's why I had to make my own pension fund. And to all the ladies that are watching, start where you are with what you've got today. Today's the day that you can make that change. You can do it in a heartbeat. Make that change. Change your mindset first, because you're rich or poor in your mind first. You can or can't do it in your mind first. And make sure you can never wait for the perfect moment, because there's no such thing as a perfect moment. It's never, ever going to be perfect. So really, I want everybody to take a lot out of this. I'm sure you'll get a lot from Yael. For those of you who haven't watched my other podcasts, the one with Chrissy last week was so phenomenal, that she could go through, leave a husband who then murdered his second wife, and then watch her daughter be murdered in a gender-based violence situation, and still come out and go fighting. You know, even though she wasn't healthy, she went and she fought. So it just goes to show that us women are really, really strong. And if you don't feel you're strong, you actually are. So to everyone watching and listening, please join me again next week for another exciting episode. I've got a fantastic woman for you as well. We go back such a long way. And yeah, it's just incredible to have these amazing women around me who inspire me every single day.